The old map called it the Whisperwood, a name that should have been our first warning. We were four friends, seasoned hikers, always looking for the next challenge. This patch of ancient forest, untouched by modern trails, seemed like the perfect adventure. We laughed as we stepped off the worn path and into the dense canopy, the sunlight instantly dimming. The air grew still, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. Our compasses started spinning wildly just a few miles in. Our GPS? No signal. It was unsettling, but we trusted our skills. We'd just backtrack. Simple. Except it wasn't. The trees seemed to shift, familiar landmarks vanishing. What was a distinct, lightning-scarred oak was now just another anonymous trunk in a sea of green and gray. Panic, cold and sharp, began to prickle at the edges of our confidence. We pushed on, hoping to break through to a recognizable clearing, but the woods only grew thicker, darker. That's when we first heard it. A soft, wet shuffling sound, always just behind us, always just out of sight. We'd stop, and it would stop. We'd start walking, and the shuffling would resume, sometimes closer, sometimes farther away. Night fell like a black curtain, swift and absolute. We huddled together, the small fire we managed to build pushing back a pathetic circle of darkness. The sounds changed. The shuffling was replaced by a low, guttural clicking, a sound that vibrated deep in your chest. It came from all directions at once. We saw movement in the periphery, tall, impossibly thin figures moving between the trees. They were like distorted shadows, long limbs moving in a disjointed, unnatural way. They never fully entered the firelight, just watched. We didn't sleep. How could we? Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves sent a fresh wave of terror through us. By the second day, exhaustion was setting in. We were rationing our meager food supply, our water bottles nearly empty. The clicking followed us relentlessly. We tried to run, a mad, desperate scramble through thorny undergrowth and over moss-slicked roots. But they were always there. Faster, more agile. They herded us. We realized they were pushing us deeper into their territory. We caught a clearer glimpse of one then. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with pale, almost translucent skin stretched taut over a skeletal frame. It had no discernible face, just a smooth, blank surface where features should have been. But we felt its gaze, a psychic pressure that made your teeth ache. That night, Liam vanished. There was no scream, no struggle. One moment he was sitting by the fire, head in his hands, and the next he was just gone. His backpack lay where he'd been, but he had simply ceased to exist. The clicking sound was closer than ever, a triumphant chattering chorus from the oppressive dark. We knew we were being hunted, picked off one by one. The Whisperwood wasn't just a name. The trees themselves seemed to murmur, carrying the clicks and shuffles on the wind, making it impossible to tell where the threat was coming from. Maya started losing it. She kept whispering about the Wopods, a name she'd pulled from some half-remembered local folklore about creatures that mimic the forest floor and steal your breath. We thought it was just the fear talking, but the name stuck. The Wopods. It gave a name to our terror. We had to get out. But how? We were completely disoriented, weak, and being stalked by things that defied all logic. On the third day, a desperate idea sparked. The river. We'd crossed a small stream on our way in. If we could find it, we could follow it downstream. Waterways don't shift. They don't try to trick you. It was our only hope. We abandoned most of our gear, taking only what was essential, and made a break for it. The Wopods seemed to sense our plan. Their pursuit became more aggressive. Branches whipped at our faces, thrown with impossible accuracy. The clicking was a deafening roar in our ears. They were no longer just watching. They were closing in. We could hear the river, a faint gurgle at first, then a steady rush. Hope, a feeling I thought was long dead, surged in my chest. We burst through a final wall of thorns, and there it was, a wide, fast-moving river, but they were there too. Standing on the opposite bank and emerging from the trees behind us, we were surrounded. There were dozens of them, their faceless heads tilting in unison. There was nowhere to run. Then Chloe did something I'll never forget. She lit our last flare. its harsh red chemical light cutting through the gloom. The wopods recoiled, hissing, a sound like air escaping a punctured lung. They flinched away from the intense light, their pale skin seeming to smoke where it touched them. That was their weakness. Light. We had one flare left. It wouldn't be enough. But then I saw it. My small, powerful flashlight still clipped to my belt. "The light?" I screamed. "They hate the light." We scrambled for our flashlights, fumbling with frozen fingers. The beams cut through the twilight, and the effect was immediate. The creatures shrieked and retreated into the shadows, shielding their featureless faces. It gave us the opening we needed. We plunged into the icy water of the river, letting the current take us. We clung to a floating log, our flashlights pointed back at the riverbank where the tall, thin figures watched us go, their clicks of frustration echoing as we were swept away into the darkness. Days later, a fisherman found two of us, Chloe and me, washed up on a sandbar miles downstream, suffering from hypothermia and severe shock. We were the only survivors. When we told the authorities our story, they listened with patient, disbelieving eyes. A search and rescue team was sent into the Whisperwood. They found our abandoned campsite. They found Liam's backpack. But they found no tracks other than our own. No signs of any struggle. To them, it was a tragic story of hikers who got lost, succumbed to the elements and paranoia. But we know the truth. I still see them in my nightmares. The tall, pale figures moving between the trees. I still hear the wet shuffling and the deep, guttural clicks. The investigation was officially closed. The case filed away as another wilderness tragedy. But I know the wopods are still out there in that patch of woods the maps ignore. They're waiting, patiently, in the shadows, and they're hungry. So if you ever see a trail that leads into a forest that feels a little too quiet, a little too dark, ... turn around. Just turn around and walk away. Some places aren't meant for us.